We've got James Morrow, who's the host of the US Report, my colleague here at Sky. He's with us again. First of all, let's start off with your thoughts on how he went.
Well, he did just enough to survive, and he did just enough to stay in the race. But that bar was set so very, very low. And I mean, yeah, everybody's going to talk about that first opening blunder where he talked about his Vice President Trump. And there's already some hilarious stuff going around on the internet with, people mocking up Kamala Harris as Donald Trump, which is pretty funny. But once he got beyond that, and you could really see, he started out punchy, started out aggressive, and then as it went on, you could see him starting to fade. You could see his energy starting to fade. His answers started to weave off into Grandpa Simpson territory. Yeah. He just started to ramble and have more and more errors. And, of course, also, even the stuff that when he was on at the beginning, and I don't know what sort of coffee or whatever he'd had beforehand to get himself pumped up for that news conference, which, by the way, they delayed a couple of times. Yeah. So it was like 2 hours late. Even that was a farrago of just nonsense and a lot of lies and, stuff about the economy and things like that, which were kind of half-truths and not really true about prices and so on. I can tell you, I just got back from the States, and I can tell you, Pete, prices are not coming down.
Yeah, it's just like they are here too. Yeah. Now, here's the problem with that Joe Biden's got, we're all aware of. People aren't listening to what he's saying. They're just waiting for him to make a mistake. That's the sad state of affairs here.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Like, everybody who watches, as we talked about earlier today, everybody who watches our sort of media has known for a long time this is a problem. And now the Democrats are trying to price that in to their calculations about everything. So we see that. But you know what we're seeing here? And I want to read you some numbers, which were just sent to me here. Voter registration changes in the month of June 24. Pennsylvania, there are now 9,000. They shifted 9,000 voter registrations to Republicans.
On the other side.
You see states like North Carolina,
swing state,
15,000. All these states, Republicans, because there you register as one or the other or another party. Republican registrations are going off the charts. And I think we're going to see more of this. That's that real fundamental level that voters are just simply saying, Biden, no.
Yeah. There's a couple of questions I noticed, and you would have too, on Kamala Harris. I mean, is it a foregone conclusion that she's the pick, or is there going to be another surprise?
Look, if you'd asked me 3 months ago, I would have said, they would definitely figure out a way to get around that. But I think, what Joe was saying before about the money question is absolutely right. But then there's the other issue too. Kamala Harris was brought on because they wanted to balance the old white guy with a diverse woman. And you cannot then knock off or bypass or pass over the diverse female pick for a white guy. So Gavin Newsom, it'd be uproar, it'd be absolute carnage.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about the black vote, though, does that bring in someone like Wes Moore, perhaps?
Well, I mean, then you'd have a name recognition problem right there. But I think the bigger problem is that, the black vote is starting to turn away from Joe Biden because they've been really hurt by both the economy and both by the open borders.
But you brought up campaign money, as Joe did as well. I mean, it's a good question. That's some $200 million sitting in the kitty. That's under the Biden-Harris ticket. Now, people have donated because of those names. What happens if one of those names isn't on it?
Well, if Biden isn't on there, Harris is still in there. So the succession plan still exists. I mean, the money question, though, I think is fascinating. How many donors who were gulled into giving money by people like George Clooney, who raised $30 million a month ago and then now says, Joe, it's time to go. How many people, big donors, are having huge buyer's remorse, saying, we got tricked into voting for this guy because they said he was fine and he could run, and the New York Times told me he was fine, and everybody said he could run and beat Trump. And now they're like, hey, you guys completely lied to me. What's going to happen there inside those behind closed door conversations with the Democrat donor class?
But is it easy if it's Kamala Harris? And it's not going to be her? What happens to that money if she's not on the ticket?
Well, this is a totally uncharted territory. This is where it gets really messy. But it's interesting, some of the events that he's got coming up. I thought there was a potential today he might do the LBJ in 1968 and say, you know what, I'm not going to run again. There is an event going on at the LBJ Library in a few weeks. Who knows? We may see that. But the question is, how do you get a guy out who doesn't want to go? This isn't a parliamentary system, Pete. This is a system that the president has to be removed by the most complicated and never tested
that's the significance of the moment we're in. I mean, you're basically ousting a sitting president.
Well, you're ousting a sitting president. You've got a media that's trying to oust the sitting president after having covered for him. So in some ways, it's kind of like a coup is sort of trying to take place here. And so I think people should be a little wary about being too enthusiastic about this switch here, because we're also at a really dangerous moment globally. And, you've got this guy who can't function, but then you've got people who are trying to switch him out simply not because they want the best person, but because they want to beat Trump. It's very complicated.
Yeah, sure is. James, appreciate it as always. Thanks for your insight.